Welcome to Traveling Oracle, the magical podcast, where we talk energetics, spirituality, and how you can use this etheric knowledge to drastically change, transform, and up-level all areas of your life. Are you ready for the glow up? Let's go. Y'all, tell me why I recorded a good 5 or 6 minutes of intro, and when I've come to edit to go ahead and publish, half of my intro is missing. What is going on? Half of my intro is missing, and I'm like, where the heck did it go? I know I recorded it. Guys, the joys of recording a podcast. Anyway, welcome back to another episode of Traveling Oracle, a magical podcast. I am so grateful for you guys who are here, who listen, and I noticed that my viewership has gone up in the Cayman Islands, of course, which is where I'm from, but also in Australia. So shout out to my new viewers. If you're new here and you're enjoying the podcast, welcome. I also invite you to rate and review the podcast because that really helps me to push this podcast to new listeners. You can also keep up with me on Instagram. I'm very active on Instagram and somewhat active on TikTok occasionally. But this episode is going to be a really healing one, I think, for most people. And this is going to be the case for the next 4 weeks, because for the next 4 weeks, we're delving into healing the inner child. And this is an issue that every human being alive has, because we've all internalized different traumatic experiences growing up, whether you consider yourself as having a bad childhood or having a great childhood. It doesn't matter. Childhood or inner child wounding does not discriminate. I also want to mention that I have opened up 2 slots for private coaching available. If you identify with any of these issues or these wounds that we're going to be talking about for the next 4 weeks, and you really want to delve into healing these wounds because you realize it's really been wreaking havoc on your life, on your relationships, on your business, listen, come to this private coaching session. I am ready and waiting to help you heal this trauma, to help you heal this energetic wound so that you can transform the areas of your life that are stagnant or that are not going well. So without further ado, I'm just going to go straight into what was left of my recording. I'm joking. I'm just going to go straight into the rest of the recording. And it's just going to pick up at the end of the intro and go straight into the meat of the subject. So here we go. For the next 4 weeks, we're going to be exploring the main issues that come up with inner child healing, just because inner child healing is so important for energetic clearing, for subconscious stories clearing, for just improving your life in general. It will help to improve your relationships. It will help to improve the way you see yourself, so your self-concept, your self-worth, your self-love. It will help you to understand why you behave the way you do, why you feel the way you do about certain things. There's so many issues in our lives currently that stem from inner child trauma. Now, the next thing that I want to say is that I can hear someone saying, I had a great childhood, so this isn't going to apply to me. No, honey boo boo. This applies to you as well, because while traumatic childhoods absolutely create inner child issues, you can still form trauma from your childhood years just from your parents being supportive, protective, normal parents. It does not have to stem from abusive parents or any type of sexual issues that happened to you as a child. It can stem from your parents just doing their job, but you as a child do not understand how the world works. You don't understand why they're saying the things they're saying or reacting the way they react. And so you internalize things as trauma, even though your parents or your caretakers or whoever was around you was just trying to protect you, was just trying to make sure you're safe, was just trying to make sure that they rear you in the way they knew is good. And that's why there's something to be said about this gentle parenting technique that's kind of taken the parenting world by storm in these last few years. Because in gentle parenting, you explain to a child why you're doing the things that you do, why you're upset right now, or why you're telling them to stop, or why you're telling them to never do this again. You're explaining so the child understands. It's very clear to you as a parent who's experienced the world and you know the consequences of certain actions. But for a child who doesn't know anything, a simple no to something they perceive as fun, to something they perceive as a expression of themselves, and it's met with an angry no. Why are you doing this? Even though a parent is just trying to keep them safe, but the child does not understand that the behavior that they're enjoying so much, whether it's pushing their finger through the socket or running with the scissors, whatever it is that's bringing them glee and joy at that moment, that the parent understands is harmful. When they respond to this child's glee in this with anger or fear, all the child sees is their parents responding so harshly to them having fun, right? And so if you don't explain, hey, I know you think you're having fun right now, or I know it seems fun to run with this object, but look, it's pointy here. And if you fell, you could really hurt yourself. Helping them to understand makes the world of difference. So that's just a little note there for the parents out there. Just a little note. Just a tiny note. But let's delve into this subject right now. So when it comes to inner child healing, there are 4 main, do I want to call them main? Yeah, I'm going to say the 4 most common trauma archetypes, I'll call them. And we're going to cover one per session. And the first one is rejection trauma. Second one is abandonment trauma. Third one is betrayal trauma. And the fourth is injustice trauma. And for this episode, we're going to talk about abandonment trauma. And I chose to start there because I feel like this is the one that I personally battle with, and it's absolutely crazy. It hid from me for a very long time, and it hid from me for a very long time because I have loving, supportive parents who did everything in their power to make sure that I was provided for, to make sure that I was loved, to make sure that I had a comfortable home, to make sure that I have everything that I could need to be happy and be successful in life. My parents did everything that they could and everything that they knew how. How could I have any type of childhood trauma? How could I? That's where my mind was at. I was like, yeah, I know people go through this, but not me. Yeah, there are parts of my childhood that maybe made me upset or that I didn't like, but trauma, that's a step too far. Until I started to do energetic healing, until I started to delve into shadow work and the subconscious mind, and I started to see the type of negative subconscious stories that I held in my belief system. I started to see the way I feel about certain topics or areas of life. That's when I realized, oh crap, even though I had a great childhood growing up, I still internalized trauma at different points in my childhood. And one of the main things that I internalized was abandonment trauma. And so for each of these trauma archetypes, we're going to go through how you can identify them, basically what they are and how you can identify them. Then we're going to go through activities that you can use to heal them, and how to identify how they've been playing out in your life. So firstly, what is this abandonment trauma? What is this inner child issue of abandonment? How does it come about? So a real brief and really good explanation of how this starts is abandonment issues happen when a parent or caregiver does not provide the child with consistent, warm, or attentive interactions, leaving them feeling chronic stress and fear. And how that played out for me is my parents were always physically present, but looking back, I realized that though they tried in their own way and how they knew, for some reason, even though they were physically there, it doesn't feel like they were emotionally there for me. It doesn't feel, and again, when it comes to these issues, sometimes it's easy to like look on the parent and say, oh, well, why didn't they do this? Oh, why they didn't do that? Remember, parents are people with their own issues, struggling with their own things and trying to do life the best way they know how, right? And so their own trauma will stop them from maybe relating to you in the way that you need. Sometimes it even comes down to love languages, where a parent might be giving you love in the language that they're most comfortable with, but you cannot receive that love because that's not your love language. And so there might be a mismatch of communication and connection right there. And I feel like that may be what happened for me. Even though they were physically there, they were physically present in the home. And it, to me and everyone else, that would mean, oh, everything's good. But I'm realizing as an adult, I did not feel the emotional connection that I should have with my parents. And so for me, I internalized that as a bit of abandonment because I didn't have that emotional support that I feel like I should have had. So this abandonment issue can come in various forms. So just look back in your life to see if you felt that way in any area of your life. It might not have been even primary caregivers. It could have been really close family members that you hold in high esteem, as high as your parents, like uncles that you might have grown up with, aunts that you might have grown up with. Some of you grew up with your grandparents. It could have been even really close friends that you consider like sisters or brothers who you kind of internalize that emotional abandonment from. For some of you, it will be actual physical abandonment where your parents just walked out on you, left you. Maybe left you with another family member. For some of you, it might be a parent who had to work so much that they couldn't be physically there for you or emotionally there for you. So there are so many ways that this could have been internalized. For some of you, it might have been teachers or coaches who you really looked up to, but didn't really pay you as much attention as the star athlete or the smartest person in the classroom or something like that. There are different ways to really internalize this trauma as a child. So now that we know how it develops, do I want to read another definition just so we get like a really rounded definition of what's happening? Okay, I checked. They all said the same thing. So now that we have the definition, let's go to the traits and the signs of this issue, because sometimes maybe it's hard for you to identify by looking way back into your childhood, but it's easy to identify the fingerprints of this trauma in your life right now. So here is a list of the traits. Think about whether any of these play out in your life right now. So the first obvious sign is a fear of being left behind or abandoned, inability to form healthy relationships in your teenage or adult years, low self-esteem, feelings of self-worth, or low feelings of self-worth, anxiety and insecurity, depression, feelings of helplessness, inadequacy, not being enough. That is one of the biggest traits of this abandonment archetype, this feeling of I am not enough. Because it stems from, if I was enough, I would have had this from my parents, from my caregiver. If I was enough, we would have connected emotionally. If I was enough, la 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 la. So that is one of the main characteristics that shows up. If you struggle with feelings of I'm not enough to have a healthy relationship, I'm not enough for this beautiful, wonderful person, I'm not enough when it comes to business, I can never own a 6-figure business even though I really want one. That is one of the huge foundations of this wound. The other thing is the fear of being left behind, and how how that shows up in your life is the first thing would be inability to enforce boundaries. You consistently allow people to cross your boundaries because you have a fear of them leaving you if you enforce them. You consistently let people step over the line. This can happen in relationships, in friendships. I mean, you see it mostly in relationships, romantic relationships, but when it's really bad, you see it in friendships as well, where you can't say no. You tend to people please. Whether you want to do something or not, you're going to do it because the other person wants to. And it masquerades in your life as, oh, I'm just nice. Or I was just grown up to be really accommodating and really nice. That's why I am this way. And it's like, there's nice, and then there's what you're doing. Do you know what I mean? There's nice, and then there's crossing your boundaries because you're afraid of abandonment. The other way it shows up is in codependent relationships. Whenever you enter relationships, you become so deeply attached to another person. And this one is a little harder to pick out because there is a level of attachment that must come when you're in a romantic relationship, right? But when it becomes really unhealthy, when it becomes really codependent, that's where the issue lies, where it's just like you can't live without this other person. You can't breathe without this other person. It's like you're holding on so tightly because you're so afraid that at any moment this person is going to realize that you're not worth anything and let you go. Another way is anxious attachment style. That kind of goes hand in hand with codependency. And not a lot. Almost every one of these traits have shown up in my life. I've healed quite a few of them one by one without realizing where the root was, where they were attached and coming from. But another one that was really present for me was just this anxious attachment style. You see it mostly when you're dating. So maybe you're not seriously in a relationship with someone. Maybe you're just in the dating phase, meeting new people. And the moment a person is really nice to you and shows interest, you become so attached to this person in your mind. Like you're the person who's planning your wedding in your mind. You adopted 2 dogs and you live in the countryside. Like this person is just on the first date smiling at you nicely and pulling out your chair. That's it. Yet you're so deep into your emotions just from those little crumbs of connection. Again, it's because whatever happened in your childhood, you formed that abandonment wound, that wound that says that people who are closest to you or people who are supposed to love you and care for you will abandon you eventually. And so anytime you get those breadcrumbs of love, those tiny, tiny breadcrumbs of connection and affection, you lap them up so quickly and you're anxious for more. And so it manifests by you're just starting to date someone and you're starting to be so anxious. Why are they not texting me? If this person isn't consistently showing you that they're interested in you, you're very anxious. You're very upset. You can't handle it. And that used to happen to me so many times where I'm like, oh, why isn't he texting me? Why isn't he la la la? It must mean that he's not interested. It must mean that he la la la. And that type of attitude pushes people away from you, especially people who don't have that same wound. They won't understand why you're reacting the same way you do. They won't understand why you're reacting the way that you do. And so you come off as a little unhinged, or you come off as too much. And to be fair, it is too much for someone who doesn't have that wound. It is too much to expect someone else to push and function and put in so much energy just to satisfy your wound. Your wound is your responsibility, right? And so I'm trying to think of any other ways that this can manifest, but I think you get the idea. So here's how we can deal with this abandonment wound. I mean, I always recommend, if you can afford it, if one's available in your area, there are many programs to help you with this if you can't afford one, but really going to a therapist or a counselor to really work through these issues. If you for whatever reason that's not an option for you, I would first recommend writing a letter to the person who abandoned you. If you are able to identify that it stemmed from your mom or your dad, or maybe your nanny or your grandparent or whoever it was, write a letter to the person who's abandoned you. Why can't I talk today? Write a letter to the person who's abandoned you, but don't focus on the person. And this is key, because a lot of times we grow up in life blaming the person for the things they've done or the way they've treated you, not realizing again that those people are also acting and reacting based off their own trauma, based off their own hurt and pain, based off their own issues and often inner child issues that they haven't corrected in their lives. And so the aim of this exercise is to not focus on the person that abandoned you, but to focus on the feelings that came about as a result of the abandonment. Let them know how this made you feel as a child. Let them know how this made you feel growing up, and how it makes you feel right now and the ways it's affecting you in your life right now. Focus on really pulling out the feelings and the issue of what this abandonment has caused you. And just getting these feelings out and being able to look them in the eye is going to be highly therapeutic for you. Because there's just something about getting your issue out into the physical world and looking it in the eye and putting it face to face for you, to help you to overcome your fear and to help you to overcome the stronghold it has on you. And so when you write that letter, I want you to read it back and really look at it in the face and feel the feelings that come up as you write this letter. Don't do your default pushing it down like, I'm just doing this, but it's not gonna it's not gonna affect me, la 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 la, this big man, bad girl thing. Feel the feelings that come up as a result. Let yourself feel the emotions. If you're upset, scream. If you don't want to disturb anyone, hold up a pillow and scream into that pillow. If you are hurt, cry. If you are upset, bang your hand on the bed. Make sure you don't do anything that's gonna hurt yourself. Bang your hand on the mattress, like punch the mattress, whatever you need to do to feel the feelings. Because one of the root issues of all of these things is that we weren't allowed to feel our emotions as kids. We weren't taught how to channel the emotions that we feel. We are taught this is not the way you behave in society. This is not the good way to be. This is not how you be a good girl or a good boy. And we're taught to bypass emotions and push them down until we don't feel them anymore. And this is why you have trauma. And so we're going to switch that behavior now. And as adults, we're going to allow ourselves to feel emotions. We're going to allow those emotions to move through our body and allow them to come out of our body through our actions, through that screaming in the pillow, through that punching the mattress, through the bawling for some of us, whatever it is to get that emotion out of the body. And as you can tell, this is going to be a very cathartic experience. Ooh, 222 on the recording thingy. That's how I know I'm on the right path when I'm doing anything, angel numbers. So I know from seeing that angel number that this exercise is going to help someone. Oh, and I'm also hearing someone who's listening to this knows exactly how they've been abandoned just by listening to this. They've seen the traits, they've identified that they have all of the traits, and they know they should do this exercise, but you're hearing a voice in your head saying, it seems like too much work, you're good, you already know, you don't need to do it. And I'm telling you, you person who has that voice saying that you don't need to do it, this is why you've been kept back in your life a lot, because you're very self-aware, but you've become comfortable with the knowledge of the things you need to do, but you're not applying any actions. And because you're not applying any actions, you're not seeing any change, you're not seeing any progress in your life because you're not doing the actions that you know that you need to do. You're over intellectualizing and being comfortable with the knowledge. And knowledge alone cannot help you. Knowledge has no value if it's not being used to help your life. No value if it's not being used to assist you, if it's not being used to inform your actions, inform your behaviors. So I'm just gonna leave that right there. Do with that, honey, what you will. I'm also going to put a plug in here that if you have identified that you have inner child issues, I have private one-on-one sessions, private coaching sessions. If you want to really dive into your inner child issues, if you really want to do healing, energetic work to address these issues and move past them, send me an email. My email is in the show notes below, and I'll tell you all about my private coaching sessions. I have 2 spots available for the next 4 weeks. When they are gone, they are gone. But for someone out there who is really being tied down by their inner child issues, private coaching is going to be very helpful for you. So, write a letter to the abandoner. That's one thing. The second thing that I would say is really powerful for you to do is inner child meditations. And in these meditations, don't worry if you find meditation hard, because it's not about emptying your mind and not thinking about anything. You're going into meditation for a specific person for a specific purpose. It's a bit like creative visualization, where you get into the meditative state and we bring up your inner child, and you're able to give that inner child the love and the connection that you were not able to get. You're able to give your inner child the things that it's missing and it's yearning for. Some of you, you're yearning for certain things from relationships. And the reason why you can't find the right person is because you're looking for someone to give to you the things that you need to give to yourself first. That you need to give to that inner child who feels abandoned first, before you can be able to be a healthy participant of a healthy relationship. Because that's the thing. A lot of us were like, oh, I'm just going to speak from a woman's perspective. All men are this, or I can never find any good men, blah, blah, blah. When in actuality, you're being held back from the right person for you because you haven't done the right type of work on yourself to be the right partner. This is a part of that work, because inner child is deeply connected to self-love and self-worth. And self-love and self-worth is deeply connected to being able to be a healthy partner for someone else, to be a healthy partner in a relationship. So get that private coaching, guys. Get that private coaching. I'm also going to put in the show notes a link to different inner child meditations, because, guys, those are super powerful to look at your inner child in your mind and tell your inner child, I love you, even if no one else does. I see you, even if no one else does. I think I'm going to make an inner child meditation myself. I just felt the inspiration to do it. So I'm going to do that. And if you want the link to that meditation, also just pop me an email and I will put you on the list for when that comes out. I'll probably try and get it done this week. And those are the 2 things that I recommend for you to start. And maybe just become a student of this issue. There's so many blogs written about it. There's so many teachers out there talking about inner child activities. I have a friend who has an inner child journal. That's a really powerful way to work on your inner child issues. There's so many ways. Don't just ignore this, guys. Lastly, before we wrap up, I just want to also talk about another important aspect of healing this issue, this abandonment, or any issues when it comes to inner child healing, is to sit back and identify how you've been compensating in your life for this wound. How has the hurt part of you been coping with life? This is a really powerful part, because sometimes when we do energy healing, we don't think about the practical parts of it, but it's really important for you to sit back and identify, how has this wound been playing out in my life? I'll give you examples from my life. I mentioned earlier this anxious attachment when it comes to dating, always feeling like if a guy isn't messaging me 24/7, they're not interested. And I've cut out a few guys in my life who were really, really good guys, but I was so deep in my hurt, I saw them as the problem versus my wound as the issue. So that's one way it played out in my life. Another way it played out in my life is I had this huge wound for many years of feeling inadequate, feeling like I am not good enough, which was crazy because on the outside I was very confident. No one would look at me and think Akil has issues with confidence and issues with inadequacy, because I always looked good on the outside. I was always dressed nicely, had my makeup done, had my hair done, had my nails done. I would talk to anybody about. I was the confident, seeming, bubbly extrovert. But deep on the inside, I didn't feel adequate. I felt like I wasn't good enough for anything. I felt like I wasn't good enough for this guy. And so when a guy would come and show interest in me, I'm like, no, he's not interested in me. And so I would behave as if I wasn't interested in them. And then eventually they would move on because they think I'm not interested. Another way it played out, this inadequacy issue, was in business, where I felt like I was only good enough for a certain income level. And so my income would not pass a certain level until I dealt with that issue, and my income and my savings and my bank account started to rise, because I started to feel like I am deserving of this increase in income, of having this amount of money and having the life that goes with having this amount of money. Recently I found another version of this, because here's the thing: as you heal different patterns and you peel that layer, you heal it, you'll find that there's another layer behind it. And then you heal that and peel it and you find, oh crap, behind that there was something else. And so what I found recently, even though I healed a lot of this feeling of not being good enough for someone, or feeling of I don't deserve this, a healthy relationship, or I don't deserve this type of guy, or la 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 la, I found recently that I held on to a story without my knowledge. And the story was that certain type of things didn't happen to me. I was not the girl that gets the loving guy who's financially stable, who can then go on to have a loving family, traveling around the world, having this beautiful relationship. I had a story that says, that's not my story. Those other girls get it, but my story is I always find the guy who's emotionally unavailable. My story is, oh, it's always too good to be true. I held on to that belief because I have evidence from the past to suggest that. And so I was holding on to that belief, which would then keep that storyline in my life, which would then keep manifesting experiences like that. And so as you do energy work, you peel layers and you peel layers, and you see things that you still hold on to, and you release and you release. And as you release, you start to see your experiences changing. Because what I noticed as I started working on these different beliefs, and I'm going to just focus on dating because that's kind of where I am in my life focusing on right now. As I started to heal those wounds and pull out those subconscious stories that I held on to, I started to see the type of man that show up in my life change. Before, it was kind of like guys that were like okay in one area, but in other areas that were very important, they fell down. But as I started to heal my self-concept, as I started to heal parts of my inner child, as I started to really look into my subconscious mind and be conscious about the things that are there, be conscious about my thoughts and how I think about myself and how I think about the situations that I find myself in, I started to see the type of guy that would come towards me shift into more of the type of guy that I want. And so, if there are areas in your life where you're consistently seeing things that you don't want, those are the areas for you to stop and think, what wound is playing out here? What negative subconscious stories am I holding here in this area? Anytime, any part of your life that's not going the way you planned, there is always a wound. There is always a subconscious story beneath that playing out in that area of your life. So, my loves, I hope that has helped you a lot. Next week, we're going to hit the second main wound when it comes to inner child issues, and that is rejection. Another really strong wound that holds on to you and really affects the way you live your life. So I cannot wait until our next episode next Tuesday. Until then, my loves, I hope you have a lovely, lovely week.